Hey guys, Andrew Dobie here, and welcome to this episode of Just a Chat With. In our previous episode, we sat down with Betty NFT, who's the co-founder and director of Dead Fellas, which is an NFT collection and community and metaverse Web 3.0 brand. The Dead Fellas collection of 10,000 NFTs sold out within 20 minutes of launch on the 13th of September 2021 and has since traded over $46 million through that collection of NFTs. It's an amazing episode. Go check that out if you haven't already. For now, we've had VaynerMedia's Chief Heart Officer, Claude Silver, multidisciplinary illustrator and director, Wacko Chaco, and brand expert, Marty Newmeyer, along with creative officer Sid Lee, Philip Mounier. In today's episode, though, we sit down with the wonderful Ash Jones, who is the founder of Great Influence, which is a personal brand agency. Ash talks to us all about how to build a personal brand, what a personal brand is, and what it means in today's digital world. Loads of amazing value in this episode. So, enjoy, and we'll see you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Just a Chat With. I'm your host, Andrew Dobie. Today, I'm very excited as we're here with none other than Ash Jones. Ash is the founder at personal branding agency Great Influence. Ash helped to build some of the UK's biggest CEOs and founders into industry-leading influential figures on LinkedIn. His journey started with Steve Bartlett, CEO of Social Chain, where he was one of the founding employees in the team. Ash helped set the strategy for Stephen's personal brand, and Stephen is now widely considered to be one of the UK's most influential entrepreneurs, with his #1 podcast, Diary of a CEO, Sunday Times best-selling book, Happy Sexy Millionaire, and has just recently announced as the youngest dragon on BBC's One's Dragon's Den. Since then, Ash has worked with a number of CEOs and founders, most notably CEO of PrettyLittleThing, Umar Kamani, founder of Myprotein, Oliver Cookson, and founder of Huel, Julian Hearn. Also founder of Parklife Warehouse Project, Sacha Lord. Ash, thanks so much for being here today. How are you?
My pleasure. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You've had an exciting year. Tell us all about it.
Yeah. Well, taking on people for the first time. For the first 2 years of Great Influence, it was just me. So actually building a team has been the big thing this year. Building a team, getting closer to the kind of people that we want to work with in terms of client base. And then starting to build what the Great Influence brand is. That's been the last 12 months, I'd say.
Yeah, so you obviously started out, I mentioned at the beginning there, you worked with Steven Bartlett at Social Chain, and you're one of the first five employees in the team, is that right?
Yeah. One of the
and for those who don't know, obviously, if you've not checked out the Social Chain story, go and check that out. They've grown hugely to now over 750 people in the team, multiple locations around the globe. And I think 2020 turned over about 230 million euros in revenue. So it's a pretty impressive story. Ash, would you mind let us know a little bit about those early days, how you got involved and kind of what that looked and felt like?
How I got involved was Social Chain came as it was an idea born out of a marketing tactic for another startup. So Steve had a startup before Social Chain called Wallpark, which is, I met him through a mutual friend. We started working on Wallpark together. Don McGregor, who's the co-founder of Social Chain, came in at Wallpark as well. And it was just, we were trying to figure out how do you market this startup, it was an online notice board for students.
Yeah.
So taking the physical notice board when you need like a five-a-side player or there's a night out, a social that you're going to do, taking that online. And we had no money to market the website. So we had to think outside of the box, like how do we market this website? And what became Social Chain was just an idea of how to market that website. And then we realized that there was more power in that marketing idea than there was in the actual startup that the idea was for. So we pivoted away from that, and it became Social Chain. And yeah, I think that's where all the best ideas are born out of not being romantic and just trying to find what works. So
and what was the marketing idea?
Got involved. It was, well, this was 2012, so social media was just probably in its first like real big rocket phase, like really taking off. And the idea was that students were on social media. They weren't like offline as much anymore. We could reach them offline, but it cost us money. Whereas reaching them online at the time, we found a couple of Facebook pages that were like student communities on Facebook with a few thousand students in. And we managed to buy one of those for £50. And then we put Wallpark in it, and it drove the most traffic that we'd ever had to wallpark.com. So we were like, right, okay, these Facebook communities with certain niches of people in them is a very good way of driving traffic to X. And it all kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah. And so how long do you stay at Social Chain? How long were you there?
Until May 2018. So it started around September, October 2014. So yeah, like 4 years-ish.
Yeah, so you must have seen quite a lot of growth in that time and change. And
yeah, the most interesting thing on that aspect of growth is we had one of the early investors in Spotify in, who's a guy called Shaq. And he's quite a prominent VC and investor he's based in London. And he gave us a talk about what it's like to go through the journey of building a company. And he'll say something that I repeat it multiple times a month. I feel like it's just one of those snippets of wisdom that you get from someone that you always refer back to. And he said that every company goes through different phases in terms of the growth of people within the team. So 0 to 10, 10 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 250, so on and so forth. And he said every single phase is an entirely different company. And there will be some people that can adapt to the new one, or there'll be people that can't transition into the new one and they're still stuck in the old version of the company. You're nodding your head like, yes.
I can relate to that, because I have seen multiple versions of my own business, and I'm almost like starting a new version of it again at 60 people. And I can see and feel it. Yeah, so Social Chain was like that. It was like being a part of over the space of those 3.5, 4 years, I was part of 6 different businesses, essentially. So it's just like a great learning experience. And I find myself now with great influence, not just repeating what happened, but trying to find the sweet spots in what went right and what went wrong in that experience in Social Chain, and bringing it into great influence now. I think that's right. You're very lucky, actually, in a sense that you've gone through that with another business at such speed as well, because you've seen so many versions of a business. As you say, you can now decide, I'll not do that the same, or I'm going to mimic that because I know how successful that part of it was. And you've almost got a little bit of an insight into what's coming, haven't you? Yeah, a little bit. And it's interesting that I talk with a few people who are on a Social Chain-esque journey now with their businesses, and you look and you can almost like see the things that they can't see yet, because you've been through the other side of it. So you're spotting something and you're like, I can see what's about to develop here. And then 6 months later, it does happen. And you're like, right, okay, it's the good side of experience. So I'm like in this hugely fortunate position with great influence where it's my first time doing anything like this. So I'm learning everything on the job, but I have like some form of reference points. Yeah. And so tell me, in Social Chain, just still at this part of your journey, what roles did you play? What was your day-to-day in there? So the first 12 months I was marketing director, which in Steve's book, which is actually sat next to me, I don't keep that there all that time. It's just in the co-working space that we're in. They have a bunch of copies on it, but I'll plug it. In the book, he mentions how we started working together, and he said that it was a display of naivety at the time. That I was the marketing director, because it was my first job. Like, I had no experience. I didn't deserve the title. I didn't even know how to be a marketing intern, never mind a marketing director. But that was kind of like what Social Chain was like in those first 12 months. None of us had any right to be where we were, but we just had the self-belief to do it anyway. And I did that for 12 months. And then at the end of those 12 months, we looked around the business at where all the revenue had come from, and 0% of it had come from marketing and 80% of it had come from Steven Bartlett. So
then we were like,
you got a little bit nervous at that point.
Yeah. We just thought, right, okay, marketing as we were trying it wasn't working. But this Steven Bartlett thing really was. So why don't we just lean into that as our marketing, so to speak? And we focused on that for the next 3 years. And in that time, obviously Steve went on to build what he built, but it also, Social Chain's marketing team, then we were able to take more time with it and figure out what was the marketing function that Social Chain as an agency can bring to the industry that can add value, rather than trying to figure out on the job or we could take more time with it because the pressure wasn't on, because all the marketing was being driven by Steve. So it all worked out nicely in the end. But that was my role, first 12 months marketing director at Social Chain, and then transitioned into helping Steve build his personal brand, which was a much greater fit for me because I didn't quite click with the mission and work of Social Chain. Yeah. I didn't really like I wasn't into it. I wasn't passionate about helping brands build on social media, which is what Social Chain was all about. But then I found passion in helping Steve be like him build his thing and tell
kind of the best version of himself. And
and
it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because personal brands per se, the way we see them now online, it kind of, way back in 2012 when you talked about the beginning of that journey, it wasn't a thing for a while, and then I noticed a few photographers were appearing and they were kind of getting all the limelight on social media, and they were producing obviously what we now know as sort of content marketing and personal brand. Yeah. And obviously, but you along with Steve have been kind of instrumental in sort of positioning personal brand where it is today. I wonder, just for the listeners who don't understand the concept or don't know what it means, could you sort of give your interpretation of what personal branding is? Explain it as if you're explaining it to your granny.
I think it's still in that educational phase as an approach where it's not a popularity contest, but the wide perception of personal branding right now is that it is a popularity contest. It's about how can I build a personal brand that gets more likes, more followers, more engagement, more reach, more this, more that. Whereas I kind of look at it the other way, and I figure, how can I build something that tells my story, my business story, and documents what we're about and who we are and who I am and what I'm about, that helps me create more opportunity for myself, whatever that opportunity looks like, whatever I need it to look like, whether that's I need to hire more people for great influence, I need us to get more clients, I need us to get more awareness, I need to do this, I need to do that. And if I do that well enough, then the rest kind of becomes a byproduct, like the popularity contest becomes a byproduct of figuring that piece out. And I think a lot of people get it the other way around, where it's about like the fame game. But it's kind of the polar opposite for me. It's like, I saw something the other day that said, if you spend your life copying people who are followed and admired, you're never going to be someone who is followed and admired. Which is really true in the personal branding space, in that what you're seeing, especially like take LinkedIn for example at the minute, what people are figuring out now is an approach to build engagement, reach, followers and likes on LinkedIn. That's very different from building a personal brand, but people are getting the two cross-wired, so to speak. And they're copying the blueprint of what you do. To try game the system, and it's a surefire way of never becoming someone who's followed and admired past the moment of LinkedIn. So it's more about like really trying to understand how you can carve out a niche that only you can do. So I always take myself as an example. I've been trying to like aggressively build my own personal brand for maybe 6 to 9 months now. And if you look at everything that I do, nobody else can do it. The majority, like 90% of it is something, it's a story that only I can tell.
Exactly.
I'm not I might not get the most likes. Nothing I do will go viral, but nobody can copy the thing that I'm putting out there, if that makes sense.
No, exactly. And I think, over the last few years, people have, kind of pushed me in the direction of, you need to put more of yourself out. And I think it's actually a really good process to go through, because when you start thinking, okay, I'm not going to mimic anyone else, like you say, I'm not trying to copy, people taking pictures of their watch in front of their, all the kind of classic things that you see. I think it's quite a good process to start to figure out who you are, what authentically makes you happy, and what you want to put out into the world, and what it will attract back to you as well, isn't it? It's a nice process. And I think you're right. Is like, I think sometimes people look and go, oh, how come I've not got 100 million followers? You don't need 100 million followers. I've got a couple of thousand on Instagram only, but the amount of business opportunity that comes to me because I'm me, and me on LinkedIn and me on Instagram, I don't need any more. I don't need any more of a following to get what I need from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's been realistic as well. Like, I kind of know where it sounds a bit negative and I don't want to put it that way, but I know where my ceiling is. Like, I know I'm not going to be a Steven Bartlett in terms of audience and follower and all that kind of thing. So I'm like happy with where I'm at now. I'm not chasing more. I think that if I was chasing more, that it'd send me on the wrong path. Like, my fundamental reasons for doing it would be shifted to a place that doesn't sit right with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And so what made you, obviously you'd had that, you'd worked with Steven at Social Chain. When you came out, did you know in your head, right, that's it, I'm going to create a personal branding agency? Or talk me through that journey.
No, I swore I was never going to do it again. So interestingly enough, Great Influence has been an experiment in me proving myself wrong on what I thought when I left Social Chain. And the reason why I say that is when I left Social Chain, I said, I'm not going to get into personal branding. And the reason was because I thought you had to be Steven Bartlett. Not him directly, but kind of.
But he's like a magical one-off, isn't he? So, inspiring and kind of,
Yeah, so I thought you had to be that to be able to build a personal brand. And the past 3 years has been a journey of me proving myself wrong every day, every week. Like, again, I'll use the example of me. Like, I'm doing it now and it's creating business opportunity, and I can feel people supporting Great Influence more and understanding the story more, and the awareness of the business is going up and the awareness of me is going up and things. And I'm like the polar opposite from Steven Bartlett. So I'm like the greatest case study to myself that I was wrong 3 years ago. And every client that we've had that we've worked with for a long time that is the right fit for us has proved that wrong to me again. It's like they're all different in each ways. You don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to have the biggest business in the world. You don't have to have this, you don't have to have that. But it is important that you're just yourself and figure out how to make that great. So yeah, when I left Social Chain, I was like, no to personal branding, but then I actually was really selfish in what I did. So I put a post out on LinkedIn, and I got about 20 meetings off the back of that one post saying that I'd left Social Chain, I'm looking for what's next. And I went into these meetings with quite important people, to be fair, that I was lucky for them to give me their time. And I said to them, I was like, where would you find the most value out of someone like me knowing what you know about what I've done? And every single one of them came back with personal branding. So rather than me trying to figure out my path, I kind of let other people say, this is what I think you're valuable for, and this is where I would, if we were to work together, leverage you. And then I thought, right, okay, maybe I just give it a go. And I gave myself 6 months. Like, I had $4,000 in the bank, kind of similar to your story. Like, you had a certain amount of money and it was like, right, let's just give this a go. I had $4,000 in the bank, and I was like, right, okay, I've got 6 months. Let's see if I can figure this out. And by the end of the year, by the end of those 6 months, I didn't know if it was viable yet, but it was the wheel was at least turning, but I was still unsure. But the wheel was turning, and that was the important part. And then from there, you have that one moment where you figure that you can do personal branding for people other than Steven Bartlett, and then you have another moment and another moment. it all snowballs from there. So,
and there was no model really for you to follow. You had to create it, didn't you?
Yeah, there's no personal, like there's a handful of personal branding agencies now in 2021 going into 2022, but in 2018 there actually was none when Great Influence started out that I knew of in the country. The only one that I know of that is still going now started about 2 months after I did. So it's like, how do you build a personal brand? What is a personal branding agency? What is still trying to I was literally saying today to the team, I have no idea where this business is going to be in 12 months. But that's the exciting thing, is that it's a market that is still defining itself. And I think it's an arbitrage opportunity, and an opportunity for us as a team is that we can define what a personal branding agency is and does.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a very, very new thing.
And I'll have some people listening to this who are thinking, I'm not sure if a personal brand's for me, or should I do that? Do you think it's something for everyone? Do you think it's something we need to think about in today's world where digital currency and sort of digital equity, everything, it's like most parts of ourselves are now online, and I remember when the pandemic happened, and I thought, we're not going to be at physical events, we're not going to see people anymore, we're not going to bump into people by chance as much anymore. And we got you into Made Brave to do a session to the whole team to inspire them about personal branding, and I saw it as I thought it's quite important, I think, for people to get a handle on. Do you think it's for everyone? Do you think it needs to be or has to be?
I'd say that the timing of you making that decision was very wise and early, because I'm getting a lot of people saying, oh, I'd love to get you in and talk to the team now. And you did it 14 months ago. Yeah. So that was like ahead of a curve thing. It's a difficult question. I don't think the putting yourself out there with the aim of building a niche audience and producing content that tells a story and all that kind of thing is for everyone. Yeah. But I think that being strategical and smart about how you position yourself online is for everyone. Like, if you're going for a job these days, chances are they're going to look at your digital footprint. Yeah. So, and you not having one is also an indicator. Yeah, exactly. Like now, if somebody applied for a job at Great Influence and I couldn't find them online, I'd maybe like, oh, maybe they're a little weird, or like, what? It's not normal. So even not having an online presence is almost like an indicator in itself. So, but that's a different thing from like building a personal brand and trying to grow a niche audience and be known for something in this. So I think that, like, being intentional about how you present yourself online and thinking of it as like an online CV is a clever, like, that is for every single person. But the personal branding thing is not for every single person, because I think that you have to, like anything, if you're going to do it, you have to commit to it. You have to give it your all. You have to be consistent. You have to be willing to go on that journey. And it's not an easy journey. It's an emotional one as well. You have to overcome a lot of personal development and insecurity barriers and all this kind of, there's a lot of emotional challenge with building a personal brand. So it's not for everyone. Yeah. And I wouldn't like people to think that their career depends on doing it, where they feel like, oh, I should be, and they get down on themselves or beat themselves up for not doing it. But at the same time, you can't ignore the very clear differentiator and opportunity that doing it presents, in that I've hired 2 people now that I've hired them off the strength of their personal brand. And obviously we're a personal branding agency, so it's different, but I still believe, especially if you're in creative industries as well, being able to display that creativity to people online before they've even said hello to you is like, it does half of the job. It gets you ahead in a sense as well. Yeah. So it's a bit of a complex answer, but...
No, I get it. And, I very much appreciate and know a lot of the advantages of it, but I'd love to know from your perspective what you think the advantages for people in doing this are. Like, what comes to you? What extra do you get in life from doing this?
I think the big one is just network and relationships. So without me actually meeting the vast majority of people that I'm connected with online, I've been able to build a relationship, build trust with them, build a familiarity, build an awareness. And I think that careers, not solely, but hugely based off your network providing you opportunities based on the strength of your relationship with that network.
Yeah.
So it's literally almost like gaming and leveraging that whole piece. And I think if I'm to have a long, successful career, it's going to depend solely down to my network that's going to continue to create opportunities for me that provide me the platform to be successful. Whether I take advantage of that opportunity is another thing, but my network's going to open the door for me.
Yeah.
So I think when I'm like 50, 60, 70, it's going to be those opportunities driven by other people. And if I can somehow work on strengthening that network and work on strengthening those relationships, it's going to be the thing that kind of defines a career, so to speak. So when I think of why build a personal brand, it's that. Yeah.
And as an agency, you're pretty much all in on LinkedIn in terms of what you offer your clients. What's the reason behind that? And should people be looking at that, or should they be thinking, how should people think about it?
No, I think more and more that it's the opportunity really is in becoming a creator. And you're actually seeing LinkedIn push people towards this more and more now with like LinkedIn creator thing that just came out. And I don't think it's a platform thing. I think it's like this, you're being a creator right now across different mediums. And I think that's the important thing for people to think about. The thing that I worry about is like just having a personal brand that just sits in one place, because you're at the mercy of another platform coming along. And you're also at the mercy of tricking yourself into thinking that you're like, that's enough. Like, I'm smashing it. That's enough. Because you're in the bubble of one platform, and it's very easy to get trapped in the bubble of one platform. And you see it with like creators on other platforms where they're just TikTok, or they're just YouTube, or they're just Instagram. And the best creators in the world are the ones that manage to go across everything. You're actually seeing like Steve Bartlett's doing it now, where it's like podcast, book, newsletter, live show. He's going to be on TV. He's got his social media channels. He's doing video. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's figuring out like how to scale himself across different mediums and different platforms so that he can tap into a whole wide range of audiences. I think that's the long term, is like figuring out that piece. But that's a journey that you've got to go on, and you've got to get to those points.
So do you think you almost need a critical mass somewhere and then start to shift it and move it? No, I think take advantage of platforms that offer better reach than others. Like if you were to have like a breakdown of where you put the most effort, it's a number of factors as to where that what that decision is. Like, it's not just where can you get the most reach, but almost like, I don't know, a scientific calculation of where's the most reach, what gives the most depth to the audience that I'm trying to reach, what is going to give us most awareness, and just focusing on that. But it's also not being too, I think we've had it with clients where they've tried to do too many things in one go. Yeah.
And I think it's best to figure out one piece, really nail that to the point where it's almost like, it's like a business, right? Like, be in it until you can be on it. And then you're able to move on to the next piece and the next piece and the next piece. Whereas too many people go after like several, I'm going to go on TikTok, I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to do LinkedIn, I'm going to do Instagram, we're going to be on YouTube, we're going to do a newsletter. It's all way too much in once, and you never actually figure out one piece. And
you actually need an army. You need an army behind you for all that as well, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a lot to it. But the important thing, like anything, is just to start somewhere. Start somewhere that feels the most comfortable, that gives you the most reward at that time. Yeah. Because again, you've got to go on like a confidence journey. If you're actually going to build a personal brand and aim for like ambition for it to be a big thing, what that doesn't mean audience size, but just your output is big. Then you've just got to start somewhere, and you've got to build the confidence to do the other things. It's like me, I've toyed with doing a newsletter, I've toyed with doing a podcast, and I could have done them, but I just don't think I'm mentally there yet. It'll come. I can feel me getting more confident the further down the line that I go with things. But I'm glad that I've kind of held off and not jumped into the next piece and the next piece and the next piece, so that when I get there, I'm 100% ready and confident to do it, and I know it's going to stick.
Yeah. And so you talk about the confidence piece, and, you know, again, it's very daunting, I'm sure, for a lot of people when they think, yeah, okay, right, I'm sold on the idea of personal branding. I see the advantages. What the hell do I post? What do I put out? And, you know, I know you're great at this. And I know we've talked about it needs to be authentic, and it needs to, but people will be looking first of all and say, well, which part of my authentic self? What do I write? And so have you got some great tips for people listening on how they could sort of create those content themes? What is it they're looking to post? How frequently? You know, what kind of recommendations have you got, Ash?
I think the most simple thing, an effective thing that I've found is figuring out, in terms of like, what do you actually talk about? What are the 2 to 4 things that you could talk about forever? And the reason why I say that is because when I started out trying to create content, I actually thought that talking about marketing was going to be part of that. And then I realized that I'm not that passionate about the overall subject of marketing as one. And then also, secondly, that it was too broad. It's like I'd sit there and think, what can I do about marketing today? Because it's such a broad scope. And my brain would just get like,
that's too much.
Writer's block immediately. It couldn't find a branch of an idea or something like that to cling to then turn into a piece of content. And the way that I cracked it for myself was like, what could you talk about forever? And I think it's good to focus in. That's why I say like 2 to 4 things. Try not to go at too much at once. But for me, the 2 things that I know I can talk about forever at this moment in time are personal branding and like the strategy behind it, the thinking behind it, the ideas, all that kind of stuff. It's not just something that I do as a job. I'll be sat at home thinking not all the time, I'm not a psycho, but every now and then I'll chew it over in my own head in my spare time. So I can tell I'm passionate about something by that. And then the other thing was me telling the story of great influence and my journey within it as somebody who I didn't plan to do any of this. I actually thought it was the opposite of what I was meant to be doing. I don't identify as an entrepreneur or anything like that. So those are the 2 things that I talk about. And as long as I'm building great influence, I'm going to be exposed to those 2 things on an immense basis every single day. So I'm never going to be sure. If somebody asks me like, what could you say about great influence today? And there's a bunch of subtopics in my head that I can immediately go to, which is like building a team, client relationships, brand. Yeah, I'm stuck now. I've got 3.
You've got 3 or 4.
3 or 4 will do. But within that, like great influence, my story, my journey within it as somebody who wasn't meant to be doing it, there's a bunch of subtopics that you can then start to write down. And that gives you the basis when you're stuck for ideas. Like, right, okay, I have this little list here of like, right, I can think of something that's happened this week around team and culture and people. I can think of 3 things right now that have happened this week at Great Influence that give me an insight or an opinion or just something to say on that. So it's about finding the things that you're exposed to on a like heavy basis that give you the inspiration. Because I think with personal branding, it's very much a game of like staying the course. And the thing that makes people not stay the course is running out of ideas. They just hit the wall with what to say anymore. So that is like the best hack that I've given myself for doing it. I'm never stuck for ideas of content to do now. If anything, I've got too many ideas now that I could tap into. And it was just down to niching in as well. Once you've figured out those 2 to 4 things, somebody might say, leadership. Leadership is going to be one of my two things, because I'm a C-suite, I'm a managing director, I'm a senior, I'm a manager, I'm a founder, I'm a CEO. So I'm heavily exposed to leadership every single day, and I think about it when I'm not doing it. But leadership is too broad.
Yeah.
Like, there's thousands of people every single day that are trying to put out content around the theme of leadership. So it's like, go a little deeper. Like, what is the narrative or niche that you can own within leadership? And we work with Katie Leeson, who's the managing director at Social Chain, and we kind of went on that journey with her. And now she's found like a pocket within leadership that she can own.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like, figure out what you're exposed to heavily, and then once you've got that, try find your pocket within it that can help you carve out, like, put your head above the rest, so to speak.
Yeah, no, great advice, and I think you're so right. Try and just narrow down those content themes, and it all becomes much, much easier, because you start to look for that content, for inspiration. You start to see only those things on your feed almost, don't you? And kind of, it helps.
I think as well, you look around, like, the other thing is looking around at what you're doing day to day, week to week. Mm-hmm. I think this is easily the single most thing that isn't tapped into from everyone who's building a personal brand, is like looking around at what's happening with your week and figuring out how you can get a bit creative with it and turn it into a piece of content. Yeah. So, yes, on Monday we had our like rebrand, new logo. And rather than like typically, or the option that I had was post the JPEG of the logo. And I just thought it's okay. But so I got it printed on a piece of a poster, and then I got a photo of me holding it, which is just a bit more human. Like, I'm in it, you can see it. It's a bit more exciting. And then the next day we've got these hoodies. We did a giveaway. Mm-hmm. Again, another opportunity for me to show the logo. Yeah, exactly. And then that giveaway did well. And today, like, that giveaway posted 300 comments, and I took a screenshot of the 300 comments with the logo still in it above it, and posted that today. Yeah. So again, it was just like, out of this one moment of us having the opportunity to post our new logo, I've like followed the thread of how I can draw it out.
It's like finding as many layers as possible, isn't it, to every moment? Yeah. Yeah,
looking around the business, and I think a lot of people don't think about the opportunities that they have to capture something and tell a story of something. There's so many things with great influence. We sit down at the start of the week and go, what is happening this week that we could potentially turn into a piece of content? And we look at the meetings that we've got, we look at the client work that we're doing, the things that our clients are doing. Is there anything they're doing that's cool that we could talk about? Is there any photo opportunities throughout the week that we could possibly get? Is there a part of the story that we can focus on this week and find the threads within it? And I think that's like the big thing. A lot of people are doing the building a voice thing, like thought leadership. That's what you're seeing in viral content. You're seeing a lot of that in personal branding right now, but a lot of people are missing the storytelling piece. Yeah. Like continually figuring out how you can tell that story, because it's way more valuable. Like this week, I'll have had about 600 to 700 likes just on our logo. Yeah. And if I'd have done like those 600-700 likes, in terms of the brand equity of those likes and what it means, is worth 100 times more than if I'd have posted a viral video of something to do with personal branding that wasn't great influence. It was just a viral thing about personal brand, and that got 50,000 likes. The audience is smaller, but the impact for great influence and the story of great influence is so much more valuable, and people aren't telling their story enough and figuring out how to creatively tell that story. I'm preaching to the choir here. You're like one of the greatest storytellers of an agency that I've ever seen. So you completely get that piece of it.
Yeah, no, it's something we honed in very early on. Is just that, people don't want to be sold to; they want to buy from. And, like, I think, I can't remember who said it, but I heard a quote sometimes, that, stop trying to be the adverts and start being the soap opera. Start being the part that people follow along. And, because people ignore the adverts in the middle. And you've got to start to do that and build around everything that's happening. And there's a great example of it. It's taking one little thing and seeing how many layers you can build from it. And we're always saying that to our clients as well. It's like, can you make a behind the scenes of this? Can you make how you did it? Is there just so many different ways that you can, squeeze as much out of each little part of your journey as you can.
Yeah, it sounds obvious, but so many people that, like, you've done it, you see the impact, you're like, how can any other business not focus on doing this? But then 99% of them won't.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the opportunity lies, isn't it? So
yeah, long may it last.
Exactly. So, well, I suppose, Ash, you've also been, as well as helping people find their brand, you've now growing your own business. So you're now on that journey, and you've 5-6 people now. Yeah,
6 of us as of. We've just hired somebody else who was joining in January, so that'll be number 6.
Congratulations. Excellent. And how are you finding the journey of growing a business, shaping a team, and kind of, starting to, just some of the challenges and opportunities that come from that? How are you finding it?
I think it's fascinating. The more I do it and the more I go into it, from both like understanding how to build it, but also my own emotional journey within it. Where I didn't, like I say, I didn't envisage myself in this position. It's been a period of adjustment, but I think interestingly enough, today I was in the car for the first time and I was like, I feel like I'm getting it now. And that was one of those moments where you think, I've just had a big self-development thing there that has happened subconsciously without me even knowing it. But it's really interesting, and I'm trying to do the opposite of everything that's happening at the minute, which, especially with young people at the minute, young people that are running businesses are just like speed, growth, size, more. And the success of your business is dependent on how many people are working there, or how big the office is, or how big the turnover is, and all this kind of thing. And I've tried to do the opposite and just go slow. And I think it's because I didn't feel ready for it. Again, it's that thing of like starting a podcast or something else. I want to feel like when I get there, I'm ready. I've been ready for it, and it's the right time, and I'm not rushing into something too soon that will throw me off.
Yeah.
So I've just took it really slow, and I think it's been, in hindsight, given the space that we're in, which is like personal branding is figuring itself out, and no business that's doing it is like, they're all figuring out what even is this thing that we're trying to do and sell. Is a good, I think it's been a good thing to just take it slow. And it's meant that me as a leader, I've been able to like intimately understand how to, not that I've figured it out or even anywhere near, but because I've taken it slow and kept the team small, every moment that you need to develop into somebody who's managing people and building teams, I've had a very intimate understanding of it, because I think when you get, you'll know this, I think when you get to like 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people, you can lose the understanding of the individual. And I feel like that's fine, I'll get there one day, but whilst I'm in this really crucial learning phase for myself as somebody who's leading it, it's better to keep it small so that I can understand closely what people want, what makes them tick. I'm still figuring out all these things now. I know this is going to sound the polar opposite, but I've never cared about anyone else, but I'm very much somebody who lives in my own head.
Don't say that out loud.
Yeah, of course. What I mean by that is that I live in my own head. I've got this world inside my own head, and I'm the main character of it. And that's been life for 32 years. So to then shift that and be like, you're not the main character of your world anymore. There's other people and other that you need to figure out how they tick. And I've spent the last 32 years just trying to understand how I tick. And now I've got to figure it out.
Then you've got all these other souls you're looking after and you're responsible for.
Yeah. So it's been a really, really fascinating thing to go on, and very much like out of my comfort zone. But that's where you get all the best development. I'm just really, really glad that I've taken it slow and done everything very lean, because it's afforded the room to grow into. More importantly, I don't think we have to get to Mars tomorrow.
No, I think it's nice as well, and I think it's nice to finally see people, saying that as well. I think there's this, over the last few years, there's this been feeling that you've got to be saying we're going for growth and scale and size, and and I think it's much nicer actually to hear the honesty of what you're saying in terms of try to balance happiness, healthiness, well-being, and all of these things. And I look at the world sometimes. We seem to be on this kind of, everything needs to grow and scale. It's like it doesn't necessarily. We can try and find happiness in amongst it as well. So
I think it's about finding purpose, and it's like the conversation that we literally had today internally was like, we don't know where the model is going, but what we do know is where our North Star is. As like whatever the business model turns into, we know it will be focused on X and X and X. And I think that's the thing that people sign up for, is like, as long as it's a mission that I can buy into and get behind, that gives me purpose and gives me energy and understands who I am, then where it goes, it's not relevant, but the model will take care of itself. It's not about the model. The model will figure itself out and will change and adapt over the course of time. It's more important to have like I say, those North Stars of what you're trying to build, that the model works to, regardless of what that model looks like.
Exactly. And that's your role as a leader as it gets bigger as well, is just to keep those things in balance, whatever those are. I've kind of got 3 in Made Brave that we try and balance all the time, and it's my job to keep them balanced. And I think it's important that you're developing that as early as possible. And it's nice to hear, Ash. So, well, I suppose we've, 2 last questions then. Is that we've got quite a lot of young creatives that listen to the show, and maybe they might have been inspired. I'm sure they've definitely been inspired by your story here today. What if they were trying to get into the world of what you do now? Is there any tips that you could give them, that looking back to the last few years, that you wish you'd known earlier, or any pitfalls that they could avoid?
I think with creatives specifically, it's so important to just put your creativity out there. And I think 2 things, like figure out your world, which is a creative thing. I was saying this in reference to podcasting the other day. I think an issue that podcasting has is that too many times a podcast will go to the world of the guest rather than the guest coming into the world of what the podcast is about. And really, as a creative, like figure out what is your world that you're trying to give to people. And then the second part is making sure that you're putting that world out there, which is the most difficult thing, which I guess comes down to the personal branding piece. I say that because a friend of mine, he's a creative in his spare time, like literally works like a 9 to 5 at a security company. He comes home and draws on his iPad for hours. And he just had no confidence to put anything out there. And he got into like the NFT space, and he's not like social media savvy either. He doesn't like understand the platforms or anything like that. But just from finding the confidence to put himself out there for the first time, he messaged me and he was like, "Oh, my Twitter followers have gone from 25 to 65 this week." And I was like, You've cracked it. That's it. But he wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't find the confidence to and it's a thing that creatives almost have to get comfortable with, and it's really daunting, especially for the more introverted creatives. Like I'm an introverted creative. The idea of putting your ideas and world out to the world is a very daunting thing. But in other industries, you can get away with it. When you're a creative, you can't. It's what you live and die by. So you have to get comfortable with it. So I'd say that's the best piece of advice, is learn how to get comfortable with putting yourself out there. And that only comes, it's like public speaking. You can't practice public speaking.
No, you can only do it, haven't you? You got to go do
it.
Yeah,
you can only, exactly.
Yeah. And have you done much of that apart from the podcasting, Ash? Have you done much public speaking beyond podcasts? Obviously, the world has been locked down for the last couple of years, but is it something you think is important in the personal brand world? Or
yeah, definitely. And I don't think like public speaking isn't the thing that's important. Obviously, it helps. Like being able to have people locked into you telling your story is a very big opportunity. But I think the thing that's important from it is that it sharpens the sword of being able to calmly, in any situation, articulate and deliver your ideas, thoughts, and opinions to the world, which is an invaluable skill in any walk of life. So I think that's the thing that doing like public speaking, webinars, podcasts, all that thing has really taught me. So
yeah, and I totally agree. I think when I started my journey, I did thousands of talks, literally, but all I was telling was what I was doing and how I was building my business. And what it helped me do was shape the narrative, understand who I was and what I wanted to talk about. And you just got better every single time. So for anyone again listening who's scared to do it, just try and go do it. Go and find an opportunity. I was a stuttering mess the first time I spoke anywhere, but it does get easier, doesn't it, Ash?
Yeah, I think that building a personal brand is probably one of the great self-development tools. It's like the underappreciated thing within it. People think it's just you build an audience, it creates business opportunity, but there's actually a whole side of it where, as a byproduct of the things that you have to do to build a personal brand, it actually works really well as a really great self-development tool. Totally.
So lastly then, Ash, what's next for Great Influence? What we're going to see next?
In the next 12 months, who knows? No idea. I don't. We're launching our website. We're focusing a bit more on telling our story more. We're starting a vlog, which is going to be out next week, and continuing to. So
that vlog will already be out by the time this is live. So
it's called Great Times. Yeah. So that's.
And where can people find that? Where will they be able to find that?
It'll be on YouTube. So Great Influence on YouTube. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that feels like a natural place to end. So thanks so much, Ash, and thanks to everyone for listening.